5 ways you'll get convicted as a gang member in San Diego. In this video, we're gonna break down the 5 most common ways that we see people that are documented or even undocumented gang members in San Diego get convicted of serious felony offenses. In this video, we're gonna talk about your social media. We're gonna talk about something known as LPR, license plate readers. We're also gonna talk about the Perkins Operation and jail calls that are recorded. We're also going to talk about your processing interview, when that happens, how that happens, why that happens, and what you need to know about it. And we're also going to talk about your clothing and tattoos. All of these, individually and collectively, can, will, and do get people convicted day in, day out of gang-related offenses or even non-gang-related offenses here in San Diego. Let's get after it. Social media is essential in a prosecutor's case, more often than not, when prosecuting someone who's alleged to be part of a gang in a serious felony. Well, here's how. I get it, we get it, right? There's a certain reputation you want to put out there, whether it's on the street, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friends, whether it's in a jail cell, or whether it's on social media. But understand this, if you're gonna do that, understand the prosecutor's gonna see it. Understand the cops are gonna see it. Understand your accuser or the alleged victim or their family's gonna see it. And what are they gonna do with it? They're gonna save it, they're gonna record it, that's going to be a lot of exhibits against you at trial. And the last thing you want is to be sitting there in a 2, 3, 4 week serious felony trial. And for 2.5 hours on a Friday afternoon, the last thing a jury hears before going into the weekend is your social media talking about the crime you're alleged to have committed before, during, and after. Talking about things that your attorney then has to sort of backpedal and argue reasonable interpretations of the evidence other than this is the blueprint for why you in fact have done what you've been accused of doing. Social media is the death nail more often than not in these types of cases because so much is out there and it is so ripe for a prosecution just to pick what they want to pick and choose because there's so much stuff out there. License plate readers, also known as LPRs, up and coming technology, especially in San Diego. Now, why does that matter in a serious felony? Why does that matter in a gang-related serious felony? Well, it matters when you have an organization or people within a gang going into a rival's neighborhood and a license plate reader picks up the vehicle that they're allegedly driving in. Right? So they may not get the interior of the vehicle, but they're going to get a license plate. And then what are they going to do? Well, license plate, this number, this letter is registered to so-and-so, right? Okay, well, why is so-and-so in this neighborhood when the last time a license plate reader picked them up was 4 years ago or 3 years ago? And conveniently, the person who we think committed this homicide or this violent act was in that neighborhood around the same time when this act allegedly occurred. License plate readers is a huge thing. Law enforcement's using it. They want to share it within the state. They want to share it nationwide, but you want to be mindful of it. And you don't want to be in a situation, ideally you don't want to commit crimes in the first place, but you have to understand that if you're out there driving around in your vehicle, it's going to be linked to you. The eye in the sky is real. It's going to get your license plate, then it's going to get your registration, who's the car registered to, and then you're, again, backpedaling, right? Why were you in this neighborhood at a certain time? Well, why was your car there? You're not going to want to answer any of those questions, but it's another key piece of evidence that prosecutors, particularly in San Diego, will use against you if you have any gang involvement, any gang ties in a serious felony. Next way you wind up getting caught up is something known as a Perkins Operation. Okay, so imagine a situation where you're 18, 19, 20 years old, it's your first time in adult jail. And you get arrested, whether it's a hot one, whether it's a homicide, whether it's a high-level drug case, whatever the charges are, right? And you're trying to navigate this adult jail system for the first time. Who are you gonna sell with? Who can you talk to? Who should you not talk to? And what happens? Well, in between the time you're arrested and your first court appearance, assuming you don't have a lawyer and the prosecutor doesn't know you have a lawyer representing you, they're gonna put you in a holding cell a lot of times. And conveniently, somebody who may look like you or maybe look like you in their life 20, 30 years ago is going to get put in that cell with you. These are paid informants. These are not even people likely that are serving time themselves. These are people off the street that are getting paid by the sheriff's department, they're getting paid by local law enforcement, and they're getting briefed before they go in to know what they want to get out of you. Right? So if you're facing a double homicide involving a drive-by shooting, they're conveniently going to talk to you about how they went through something very similar to what you're going through now way back when. Everything you do, everything you say is being recorded, whether you're talking to somebody that you think may be an OG in a cell, in a holding cell with you, or whether you're talking to friends or family on a jail phone. Next thing I want to break down when you're accused of being a part of a gang or facing serious gang-related felony charges is something known as a processing interview. And that sometimes is different from the same day you get arrested. Sometimes that may be a couple of months before you actually get arrested. Sometimes it could be the same day. A lot of times what we'll see is an alleged offense, let's say in early January, and a suspect may get picked up, may get detained for processing, fingerprints, DNA, and they may have an interview with law enforcement in January. They may not get arrested until August, let's say, for that alleged offense, and they may put their guard down during that processing interview. Am I under arrest? No, you're not. But that processing interview is used a lot of times, not so much to get what you say then, but to put you on alert to continue to make missteps and continue to make mistakes in February and March and April and May and June, July, until you get arrested in August. How have we seen that play out? Something goes down early January. Someone gets picked up that you may know a couple of weeks later. Cops want to talk to them. They give a bogus alibi, right? Well, that's consciousness of guilt. That's what a DA is going to argue. Why are they making stuff up? Best thing to do is keep your mouth closed. Politely decline to answer those questions. So you have to be wary of what your rights are, how to handle those situations before you find yourself in that situation. All right, so the last one we want to go into today is tattoos and clothing, why that's important if you're alleged to be part of a gang and facing serious felony charges, and how that winds up getting people convicted day in, day out, particularly in San Diego. Tattoos and clothing are identifying information. Okay, so let's play this out. You're wearing a short sleeve shirt. You have a very unique tattoo on your right arm or on your right hand. And lo and behold, on the surveillance video, they have a real good angle of the suspect's right hand or right arm, and there's your tattoo. Well, that's difficult to overcome, right? How many people have that same exact tattoo? How many people may have cell phone evidence that puts you in that neighborhood at that time? So you want to be careful about that. We understand why tattoos are there, especially within the gang culture, but you can't be going around wearing short sleeve shirts, committing crimes, and then wondering how you got caught. You got to be smart about that, right? Ideally, you don't want to commit any crimes at all, but you have certain rights associated with it. So let's say that if you're a suspect in a case and they show you your surveillance video, you don't have to talk to the cops and explain things. Politely decline to answer any questions. Please speak to my lawyer. The other thing you want to be careful about too is clothing, unique clothing. We see it all the time. We're talking to our clients after the fact, and it's like, hey, did you give any thought to maybe not wearing that unique sweatshirt with that distinctive logo when you were out there committing a crime, right? So let's be clear about something. This video is not, especially as it relates to tattoos and clothing, it's not about, this is how you get away with crime. It's just be smart about certain things, right? And more importantly, what your rights are when you get questioned about it. You don't have to explain yourself to the cops. You shouldn't explain yourself to the cops without the assistance of a lawyer. Because over and over and over, you wind up giving them stuff that they don't have, ways to convict you, ways to confirm their suspicions, especially if they believe you're in a gang. These are things over and over again what we see. So in this video, we broke down the many, many ways, particularly in San Diego, gang members or associates of gangs. We talked about social media evidence. We talked about LPR, license plate readers. We talked about the Perkins Operations and jail calls. We talked about the processing interview, when you might just be taken in for questioning, not necessarily arrested. And we talked about identifying features, such as distinctive clothing and tattoos. Any of these by themselves sometimes can be enough. Sometimes there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, not direct evidence, right? People get convicted in courthouses day in, day out, no matter how good their lawyer is, on a lot of circumstantial evidence, right? So everyone's job as a society is ideally not to commit these crimes to begin with. But if you find yourself accused of something, whether you did it or not, whether you might have done some of it or not, you still have the same rights, whether you're factually innocent or whether you're factually as guilty as the day is long. And that goes around keeping your mouth closed, exercising your right to remain silent. Don't put out evidence by way of social media, by way of jail calls or recording conversations with individuals, boasting about your crimes, because that may feel good in the moment. That may hone a certain reputation, but you know what that reputation is going to lead to? That could very well lead to a life sentence if you're convicted of a special circumstances murder, not because of what you did on the street, but how you handle yourself during and after the fact on the different avenues that we broke down in this video. So if you have any questions about this video, you could always reach out to me and my team here. You could always share this video. We encourage you to like this video on YouTube. Share this video with someone you may know out there. We do a lot of talks in the community, especially to at-risk youth, talking about, hey, I'm not the right person to tell you not to get into a gang, right? I didn't go through that so many of our clients went through. I had a really good upbringing in a relatively upper to middle class family, right? With a supportive family. So my job in this is not to, don't go into the gang, don't live this certain life. My job in this is to make sure if you do that, is you understand what your rights are. So share this video, get the word out there, because we're tired of seeing 18, 19-year-olds going to prison for the rest of their life, not necessarily because of what they did in the street, but how they handle themselves after the fact because they weren't educated and didn't know what their rights are. Protect your freedom, protect your future, know your rights.